You're going to have to do weird shit. Fall in love with your idiosyncrasies. I think everybody who is special does that. I've been able to work with a lot of people in the game, and a lot of them are so weird. They are weird. To be good, to great, or exceptional at what you do, there are certain things that you are going to have to do that are absolutely weird but work for you. Fall in love with it. And that's your design practice, right? That's your special swoosh.
Welcome to For the Long Run, the podcast exploring the why behind what keeps runners running long, strong, and motivated. I'm your host, Jonathan Levitt. Through personal and professional connections in the running world, I have the privilege of getting to know some amazing athletes. I've always been fascinated by the psychological aspect of running, and this podcast is aimed at exploring this and much more. I hope you enjoy. This episode is brought to you by SuperCoffee, the healthy, delicious alternative to sugary coffee drinks. SuperCoffee was recently named the fastest growing food and beverage brand in America by Inc. magazine, and after tasting a bunch of their flavors, I can see why. Their coffees contain zero sugar, and many of them contain 10 grams of plant-based protein. They're growing in popularity in the running community, and I'm excited to share a special discount with you. They offer a 60-day money-back guarantee, meaning if you don't love it, you get your money back, no questions asked. Grab 15% online with the code FTLR or look for them nationwide in 25,000 stores like Target, Whole Foods, Walmart, Kroger, and CVS. Cheers. Welcome back. I have Joe Holder joining me on the podcast today. Joe, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Yeah, for sure, Jay. Pleasure to be here. Excited to talk it up.
For sure. So first question for those who might not know you, who is Joe?
So I'm Joe Holder. I'm a founder of what's called the Ocho System, which is basically kind of like my health and wellness company. It's more so, I suppose, a design studio. I like to think about it in that way. I'm a Nike master trainer. I'm also a run coach. I'm a consultant, and I'm a writer. So I guess I'm a polymath of sorts. So yeah, I'm just out here trying to use my skill set and apply it to as many different areas as possible.
Awesome. Have you been into health and fitness your whole life, or has that been something more as an adult that you've fallen into?
Pretty much my whole life. I grew up, in an active household. I was involved in track from a very young age. I'm one of 7 kids: track, football, basketball. My earliest memories are playing football and then running track and playing basketball. In the backyard with all the kids on the block. Our backyard was kind of a watering hole. So yeah, and then I eventually played football in college at University of Pennsylvania, and now I try to say I'm an athlete for health. And, I push myself a little bit sometimes, but yeah, I've just been active my whole life, and I'm trying to continue that moving forward.
Nice. So how was the transition from track to football back to you've been doing some marathons and longer distance stuff lately.
Yeah.
So what's been sort of your genesis as a runner and as an athlete?
Yeah, I mean, running growing up was definitely in the shorter distances that eventually graduated up to the mile. But I high jumped. I was a pretty good high jumper. I went to the Junior Olympics coming up for high jump. But really was a repeated sprint athlete. So, playing basketball, playing football, that type of thing. But post college, I got into being more so of a run coach, but at the same time taking kind of a sport agnostic approach to it, like looking at running as a fundamental athletic pursuit. So with that, I was coaching a lot of people, but specifically for the work Nike was doing in New York with their run clubs and things of that nature. I was coaching people for marathons, but I had never run one, and even though I was coaching people for it, a part of me just wanted to see what it was like to run a marathon. Another part of me just kind of wanted to, I think, quell any doubts that I could do a marathon and do it well. But I always like applying kind of, empirical strategies to my body to see what works, what doesn't work, to try to fail, to try to succeed. I've succeeded. I've run 3 marathons or 4. They're hard. They're hard for sure. But like anything, there's a method to the madness, I guess. I'm not sure if I'll keep running them, but you can't take away from me that I've done it.
Absolutely. I ran my first for a similar reason. I was working for a company that most of our customers are marathoners, and they were asking me, "How do you use this product for marathoning or for running?" It was spirulina algae, and
Yeah.
I was like, "I don't know. I might as well run one." And then the Boston Marathon bombings happened, and sort of expedited
Yeah.
my desire to get out and run in Boston. And I think that empirical data and sort of mixing science with your own applied experience is fascinating. I've enjoyed watching how your coaching has changed and evolved, and the type of coaching and the type of nutritional guidance that you suggest and support, as a mix of here's what works for me and here's what the data says. So make your own decisions, which is, um, I think, the most important way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the industry's funny right now, right? You see a lot of segmented thoughts where you have people who say, "Oh, because this works for me, and here's some stuff that the data says everything else is wrong," right? Like,
Right.
more power to them, but whatever. The carnivore guy, the doctor, I can't remember his name right now. I guess I'm a little tired, but the what's his name? It's not Saladino. Whatever, but the carnivore MD, he was recently on Joe Rogan, but the stuff he puts on Twitter. You have Dr. Barry, who's super into ketosis. You have Gregor. You have all these other people that are just like, it's my way or the highway. But it's just like, hold on, like there's so much we don't know. There's so much we know that is super distinct to each relative population. Environment also does matter. It's like, can't we just have nuanced discussions and approaches? Like, here's what works for me and why. Also, here's what might work for you and why. But this is also why I don't do those things and I do why it is that I do. But I guess it doesn't sell. I guess it doesn't. It's not inflammatory in a non food context, so it doesn't hook you. The harder you have to make people think instead of being like just a simple ideologue. It's not as I guess you won't be as successful. But I've found a little niche, and I'm gonna keep just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, your niche is fascinating, right? You follow a mostly plant-based approach, but you say that that's not necessary or required for everyone. And I think that, as you said, like, that is the least inflammatory way to do it. Again, food pun not intended. And because you're not ruffling anyone's feathers with the statements you're making, it's not as, sexy or buzzworthy, because you're not saying eat meat and just meat and salt and water, or like eat this or eat that. It's like, this is working, and it's common sense. I feel good. The data supports this. You might not feel good eating this way.
Yeah, I mean, I think as more stuff comes out in the microbiome, I think as more stuff comes out on epigenetics, but even before it gets so deep into that, it's just like, hold up, like we're pulled everywhere except from ourselves, right? Like we're every time, like whether it be social media, whether it be the computer, whether it be work, like you forget how you feel, and then you're hit with so much information, and then you don't know where to move, and then you're not actually listening to what your body is telling, nor are you getting more data, whether it be through whatever inside tracker, whether it be through your own blood tests, whether it be through a VO2 max test. It's like, how is my body responding to what it is that I actually do? So my philosophy is pretty simple. I don't believe there's anything as a healthy food. I think health is an end result. Health is the result of the wellness strategies that you put into place and your personal kind of diet strategies. So for some people, eating more meat may be beneficial. For some people, eating more plants and plant-based foods may be even more beneficial. For some people, not eating certain things would be more beneficial. And that's why I think everyone should do an elimination diet, at least short term in their life, just to understand, how do I actually feel when I eat things. So I think because it takes longer, like this thought process probably took me a full, I was born in it, and it probably took me a full 8 to 10 years to get there on my own. So people don't want to play this. People don't want to deal with that. That's such a long time, It's like,
Just want a quick answer, right?
yeah, everybody wants a quick
So,
answer.
where did your for those who don't follow Joe on Instagram, highly recommend it. He mixes um, his own experience and his own training with coaching and what his clients are seeing and experimenting with. Um, where did your desire or passion for helping others? When did that start, and why do you think that's like that's you to your core?
I mean, it's a mix of things. I mean, I'll give you two answers. The simple answer is because I don't want to work. Like, I don't want to work for anybody in contemporary sense. You know what I mean? Like, it just hit me very early. It was like, oh, I can't spend my whole life just working. Like, I can't
Right.
do that. But if you're helping others, you'll always be taken care of. That's my belief. But then, as a relatively egotistical, I suppose, high school kid, excelled in sports, all that, I had to do a community service immersion trip in Camden, New Jersey, which was one of the poorest spots at the time. It's getting better. Then this was 2006, I guess. And I went to a Jesuit high school. So, in order to go from junior to senior year, you have to do an immersion experience in which you go for a couple of weeks to some part, a couple of weeks, maybe it was a month, it was, 2 to 4 weeks, where you go and spend time in an area in the United States that needs help. So, you go and live there, you engage in the community, and you volunteer. So, the Jesuit philosophy is being a man for others. While I was there, we had to eat below the poverty line. We had to go volunteer in the homeless shelters, all these things. And I was like, yo, this is fucked up. Like, this is crazy to me that these things are happening. But at the base level, it's very crazy to me that individuals' health had just been taken away from them, and that there's nothing that we could do, that nothing that people were actively doing to change it, whether it was on a small scale. And a large scale, it's a little bit of a different discussion. That's why I think civic duty is so important. But from that point on, and from my further experiences also in college, I had a fellowship with nutritional development services in the city of Philadelphia, and we're and giving summer meals to kids because a lot of kids who are out of school can't eat. Food insecurity, very real. This was probably in 2010, and just doing that in 2011, and just doing that and understanding more about it, I just thought to myself, I can't just simply live life to go to work, that I can't simply live life not to help in some small way, whatever it may be. I can't fix everything, but I can fix something. And I don't want to work my whole life, but I understand my life has to have a component of work. So combining those two things, I want to help people improve their health. I want to use my acumen to the best of my ability to work with whatever I say other companies, including my own, is more of an entrepreneurship model, like a special ops team that affords me more time to also be able to live my life. And I feel best when I'm helping others, and that just makes me feel good, to be honest.
That's awesome. I love that. The last conversation I ever had with my grandfather was basically him telling me what the meaning of life was. And he said, I think that life is all about leaving the world a better place than when you entered it. And so, what you're doing and what you're describing is the epitome of at least what he determined to be the meaning of life. Pretty wise guy. So, I figure he might be onto something there.
Yeah,
Um,
shout out.
I, I do love that, and I feel the same way. I work for a company, but I feel like what I do is also helping others, and I don't see it as work because everything is about helping somebody find a better answer and a better way and a better way to feel and fuel and live. And it's such a privilege to like have this as what we do for work. Like it's not, sitting a 9 to 5 and punching the clock and not giving a shit about the output. It's like I feel it, I live it, you feel it, you
Yeah,
live it, and it's a tough balance because the more you work in this mode, like the more people you help, and you have to at some point take care of yourself and not overdo it for yourself so that you can be of service to others. So you do have a lot going on. One of the questions or topics that I like to discuss on the podcast is balance and how to juggle and manage it all. So is this something that you've struggled with? Is this something that you actively work on? How do you manage all of the irons you've got going in the fire?
yeah. I mean, I got a lot of advice coming up. It was easy. Sometimes people have told me I was rowing too many boats. Sometimes people told me I needed to slow down, do this. Sometimes people told me to go harder. I take a balance of it. Like, to be honest, there's a few things that you hit on. One, even if you're working a 9 to 5 or you're not, my challenge, which I've even given to myself, which I've realized probably in the past 24 to 36 months, is like we're all safe. And this is what I don't think people understand. We're all safe. You're safe, and you get to work a good job where you're helping people. Financially, you're probably relatively stable, probably relatively have your health. You're not in danger, right? You're not in Fallujah. You're not in an area that is too downtrodden. You're safe. And my challenge then becomes, to an extent, is what I had to realize is, first, break out of the game, break out of the thought process that this is so important and you're super stressed and you have to do this, you have to do that. Basically, reducing my allostatic load, which was like, stop putting so much excess pressure on myself because a culture is telling me that's what I'm meant to do, which is just simply work. It's like, hold up, I'm safe. I cannot work another day in my life and still figure out a way to enjoy my life. So at the end of the day, that means I'm good, right? So I'm like, okay. So with this concept of taking balance into play, my thought process is, hold up, can there really be balance in the same way? Let's talk about running, right? A balanced training plan is what, right? It's probably technically would be, I would do 33% of low intensity, 33% of medium intensity, 33% of high intensity. But does science typically say that's the best way to train in a balanced training plan? Is no, right? So what I've tried to look at more so is equilibrium and taking a performance route, which is, when I go hard, I need to go hard. So let's say the 80-20 perception that a lot of people have with running. 80% low, 20% high. When I go hard, I go hard. When I need to go low, I'm gonna go low. So a lot of the times what people do is that when they should be relaxing, they don't, because they either feel guilty or they feel they need to go harder. This is both for running and life. But before getting too theoretical, my thought process is, one, understand the difference between homeostasis and allostasis. I'm never going to do anything to my body that, of course, changes the set ranges that are needed to basically function. But what I will do is that I will stress myself enough so that when I need to deal with the hardships of the world, I'll be ready for that. And then I'll set aside time to relax. So to make that more real is, I think there are three main stressors that you need to take into account: physical, emotional, mental, and your environmental. And then if I could, in how I recover is, I engage in practices that change my environment that I'm in. I like to spend time in nature. I have to set time aside for that. I change my mental and emotional state. So I meditate. I try to set aside time for that. We've been programmed to believe that meetings are more important than meditation, which is crazy. And then physically, I either train myself to be able to deal with stressors, say a hard track workout, or I take time off. So basically, is you have to set your schedule, set the schedule for your life. Like right now, I'm in Aruba, and people are probably like, "Oh, you're lucky doing this, doing that." Yes, I'm for sure very lucky. But right now, I'm in Aruba because of what I'm basically doing. I've set the time aside, which I previously didn't do in the past. And basically, what I'm doing is that I'm basically just having a personal company offsite, where I'm taking time for myself. And this is the best thing that I've learned from working with big companies. They have offsites. They basically shut everything down and take time for their teams to recover or understand their goals. So that's what I think everybody should do. You don't have to go anywhere, but you could, set aside time at your home, at your apartment, and then set aside time for the wellness strategies that will take care of you. And that's how I look at it, because in the beginning I was trying to do too much. I was on the verge of burnout. My body was giving out on me a little bit, and sometimes you come out of the other side of the fire well. But I implore everyone to not think that rest is slovenly, but rest can be revolutionary if you do take the time to actually go hard when you should. Life takes hard work. Don't run from that. But life doesn't always have to be hard work.
Wow, that was I love that. I'm like taking notes here of the little sound bites to cut out and use as quotes later. Um, so yeah, to your point, um, the environmental breaks or the changes or the rest periods are so essential. Like we do it in running, but so few people actually do it in life. So I booked this 2-month trip to Colorado back in October, and I was like burned out because I was working all the time because I was just bored. Like I wasn't seeing anybody physically, and I was living by myself. And again, like I was safe, but I was bored, and I was just working all the time because I literally had nothing else to do. Um, I get to Colorado in February, and I spend like the first weekend entirely outside. Like didn't spend a minute indoors, like from like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And Monday morning rolls around, I'm like, let's fucking go. It's time
Yeah,
to work. And
yeah,
I felt so good and ready to work. So much so that like our CEO was commenting and my manager was commenting on like, you feel different. You seem different. And I was like,
yeah.
because
You
I'm in a
got those
place of
negative
balance.
ions. Yeah, you got
Yeah.
those negative ions. Like, nature heals. This is what you hit on is basically, you were, when you hit overtraining, when you spend too much time doing, medium intensity work to high intensity work, you get tired, you feel weird, you're not bouncing back. And man or woman or they does not exist in a vacuum, right? You exist within a context. And to think that your environment, both, real outside and the environment of your feelings doesn't have an impact on who you are is a very hubris filled thought process. So take time. I'm glad you felt that way. And look at that. After a weekend, imagine after a
Yeah.
week, imagine after scheduling a weekend every month instead of after
Right. Right.
months. You know what I'm
A
saying?
year.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like it's crazy.
Yeah, it's incredible and it's so simple at the end of the day. It's like weekends or nights or just go outside for 15 minutes. I mean, there is so much science that backs up these anecdotal experiences that we're having and talking about to say that 15 minutes outside in the sun in the middle of your day, like you come back and you feel better. So we get to a place where now companies and these wellness companies are talking about working less so that you get happier employees, but also at the end of the day better output. You look at Whoop, they are they insist that their employees don't show up for work or don't work when they haven't slept enough. I saw an article about that. I feel like you know those guys over there at Whoop. Um,
Yeah, I know. Well, I used to work with them a little bit. Yeah, I mean, they're basically, workplace productivity is contingent upon how recovered someone is. I think they're offering
right.
like $100 per month for everybody that hits their sleep need. I mean, to be honest, I wear those things in stages. The Guardian had an interesting article about it back in 2019 or 18. Like, I'm one of those people that if I constantly wear it, I get anxiety. I can't do it, and I'm focused too much on metrics instead of process. Um, but yeah, I think if people need to trust the process, not to take what's his name, Embiid's philosophy, but like things that are simple are not always easy, but if you set the structure for those simple things to come, it becomes easy. Most people don't have wellness structures placed around them, but I think anybody that is either middle class or above, call a spade, you have no excuse. There's no the social determinants are not negatively impacting you. For you, it's a choice, and I think like especially for class solidarity, people who have the ability to partake in taking care of themselves absolutely should. And if you don't, there's honestly no excuse. And I think we just have to be honest about that now. Now, when you look at, lower class and people who do not have enough money or education or access, we have to be a champion for them. But to be honest, I am just tired of people who should be taking care of themselves that don't. It's unfair. It's not right. And, I think it's just relatively selfish. And that's why, I personally try to make it as easy as possible. I'm like, yo, here's some exercise snacks. I don't have to be doing that. I do that shit for
Right.
free. I'm like, but like, come on, like, let's go.
So so somebody who is listening to this and they're saying like, "Wow, Joe is talking to me right now. Like I've been making excuses for the last year in the pandemic or the last few years prior to this with mental health and physical health and emotional health, letting things slip. What's step 1 and step 2 of bucking that trend?"
Step one is decide. A decision is the foundation of action. I found a therapist in an hour after procrastinating for a year because I decided to do it. Right? I'm not a David Goggins guy. Bless him. I love David. I love Jesse. I'm not calling you a B. I'm not calling you soft, a punk. I'm just simply saying decision is the foundation of action. We do things because oftentimes we don't have to decide. We've been told we should go to work. Somebody decided that for us. We were told we had to go to school. Somebody decided that for us. So when you want to take care of you, the first thing is make a decision. That's what I say. Second step is build your team out. It's not even a focus on you, woe is me. Build your team. That could be hiring someone, but that could also be a support staff. That could be your friends. That could be your family. That could be a digital group. And that could find the tools that are necessary, right? And then it's set up the environment. Don't know what it is that that you're going to do. Just set aside the time to do it. So, for instance, this is called instigation habits. Don't say, all right, I have to know the exact type of meditation I'm going to do. Just simply say, okay, I know for 10 minutes every day when that alarm goes off, I'm just going to put my phone away. I'm just going to sit. I'm just going to sit on the couch. I don't have to know my tempo of breathing. I don't have to know a mantra. I'm just simply going to say, I'm going to put the time aside. In the same way, it's, all right, I don't need to have a training plan built out, but it's like, okay, for 30 minutes at the end of the day, I put my running shoes by the door. I'm going to go walk or jog or do something. And then from there, you make it more formulaic. But yeah, those are my three tips. It's decide, it's support staff, and then it's instigate. And once you do that, I think then you kind of get on a little bit of, rote memorization. I don't know. A lot of people think I'm healthy because I'm gifted or have this. Yeah, I'm blessed. I'm gifted with my health, but I have a lot of aches. I have a lot of pain. I did it because I set up an environment for my best results. I know I'm lazy, right? I know I don't like to always clean up. So I know at the end of the day, I'm like, all right, 30 minutes, you got to clean up. It doesn't matter. I know I don't like to respond to emails. These are my things that are basically like hard. When people say, oh, it's hard for me to work out. Like there are areas in life like that for everyone. But I think if you just set up the environment and set a schedule, that's the easiest way to get it done. You know how I finish books? I say I'm gonna read a chapter every day. I don't say I'm gonna finish this book. I just read a chapter every day, and then you're done. That's it.
Yeah, you don't need an elephant in one bite.
Yes, yes. It's summation. It's just like, come on, y'all. The time's gonna pass anyway. It's like, what are we really doing? What are we honestly?
Yeah, I think the stasis or just lack of. I saw a tweet yesterday. I think it said you can choose to be comfortable or you can choose to grow. And I think that's exactly it. It's like most of us can choose one or the other. And if you want to grow and break, out of a routine, you have to get uncomfortable. One of
But
the
I
ones
would
that
push back. I'll push back against that because I know people always say this, like growth never occurs outside of your comfort zone. Growth occurs exactly within your comfort zone. The key is to have a short term period in
right
which you expand your comfort
of
zone.
discomfort, yeah,
Yeah, like very short discomfort. But the key is to not always be uncomfortable. The key is to expand your comfort zone so you're achieving while you're comfortable. That's what flow state
right,
is. You know what I'm saying?
right.
So it's like,
Yeah, so we're not taking massive risks every 5 minutes, but maybe every so often you do something different.
yeah, for sure. You, of course, yes, yes. But I think that's why people get scared because you log on to Instagram and you see some ripped guy doing backflips off a log or some guy with a weight vest running 10 miles, and it's just like, what the fuck is this? Honestly, excuse my language, but it's just like, what is this? This is not how people get healthy. The huge difference in health, fitness, and performance. And at the end of the day, people need to understand you could be completely comfortable taking care of yourself, and that's what I want people to understand.
Thanks again to SuperCoffee for supporting this episode. I have been loving their French vanilla and hazelnut flavors and the cold brew cans. SuperCoffee combines the caffeine from 2 cups of coffee with protein and healthy fats to give you hours of focused energy with no jitters or crash. I love it as a strong start to the day. Receive 15% off of your purchase at drinksupercoffee.com/FTLR or use the code FTLR at checkout. I recommend trying one of their variety packs or bundles. If you give it a try, let me know what you think. And now back to our conversation. One of the areas of health that you just mentioned that you said you put off for a while, you said you recently got a therapist. Mental health is something I like to talk about on this podcast. Um, I started seeing a therapist in 2018, and the first time I talked about it, I posted on Instagram, and literally 100 people replied saying, "I see a therapist too." and 900 people saw that story. So one out of 9 people volunteered the information that they were also seeing a therapist. And I was like, damn, if
Yes.
100 out of 900 people said that they're doing it, probably half are. So where did your interest in expanding or improving your own mental health come from, and what was the piece that sort of pushed you over the edge to take that step?
I mean, these are all great questions. I've always been fascinated, I think, with the human condition. And I remember in college, we had a sports psychologist. Well, first off, I battled depression when I got hurt playing football at UPenn. And that's when I realized something was off. So I had to figure out a way to bounce back. I didn't use a therapist then. I tried, but I didn't really like my therapist, which is relatively common, I suppose. But getting out of it again by dealing with my injuries and eating a little bit better, I kind of got over the hump slightly. But then I've always been intrigued about the difference between, I think, mental mindsets for performance and mental mindsets for, more so for therapy, although they are intertwined. There are also like sport performance orientations for like meditations and mentality. And then on the other side, there is more so therapy. But I realize that the main place that I live every day, no matter if I'm at somewhere beautiful, I would be at great places. I wouldn't be enjoying myself. I'd be tense. I'd be anxious. And I realized like the ultimate home is my mind. So I needed to find ways to take care of that. So at the end of 2018, I took a little bit of a trip, a sabbatical for I guess the first time. I spent some time in Australia, and I just really wanted to get improve my mental health. And I said to myself, "Yo, like, just build your team out. Like, you need a therapist." As the responsibilities started piling up, I realized like I can't do my work on my own. I can't take care of my body on my own. And so basically, for me, mental therapy is just physical therapy for my mind. In the same way, I have a physical therapist work on my body. I have a mental health expert work on my mind, and massage out, get to the grounding issues that might be there, and just as an accountability partner. So, um, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that distinctly answered your question as to when it became important to me, but I just know I can't take the next step forward or continue to move forward unless I really take care of my mental state.
For sure. Yeah, Lexi Papas put it in a similar way, saying mental health is like a scratch on the brain, and you work with a doctor or a physical therapist for a physical ailment. So why not the same thing for a mental ailment? It's the same thing.
Yeah, precisely. And it doesn't have to be, there's not necessarily even something wrong with you all the time, right?
Right.
It's just like, if you could be a little bit better, why not?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I started seeing a therapist for a very specific reason, and then it got to a point where it was like, okay, we've worked through that. I've got the tools that I need to navigate what I needed to navigate, and now it's just like maintenance. And like we go see a doctor every year to check in on our physical health and make sure our blood work is normal and all this stuff. So again, it's like the same thing for your brain, just another body part.
Yeah, I agree.
So switching gears a little bit, another topic I like to discuss with people who have done interesting things or are doing interesting things is um, the idea of success. So I'm curious, what does success mean to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I'll give the practical answer and I'll give the aspirational answer. Practically, it means financially independent, retire early. I'm one of those people that, believes in a fire philosophy. I don't want to spend my whole life working. Uh, for me, yeah, it's just being financially independent, being smart with my money, making sure I feel okay to well for the most part. And I want to retire early. This is something I want to live life. Like I want to really explore it. Because I think from a very early age, I was always working. I got a job early. I was involved in sports. I was in school, all that stuff. But I didn't really experience it from an enjoying aspect. It was something that I did, and I was just expected to excel at it. So I took it so seriously. But in my adult years, like I think I'm trying to relive my kid years. So to an extent, I just wanna play. And like honestly, I just want to play. So
Yeah.
that's what success is to me, in that sense. But also success to me is, as your grandpa stated, I think of I like I'm into the thought process that everybody the world is contingent upon technically somebody's mind, right? So you have the greater world, whatever, the collective consciousness. But if I can just improve people's worlds, even if they're just individual, then I can be successful. So if along the way, of course, hopefully I'm taking in abundance in multiple forms and I have my health. But if along the way I'm changing the way you think, I'm changing your health, I'm helping you in some way and inspiring you if possible, but also making it practical for you. So it's just changing individuals' worlds. I can't change the whole world. I can't. I didn't consent to this existence. There's a lot of things outside of my control, but I can along the way change somebody else's day, change somebody else's year, change somebody else's life. Whether that's saying hello to somebody as they're walking down, whether it's even if I don't have change, respecting the humanity of the homeless guy as he asked me for change and just telling him, hopefully you have a good day, giving back, volunteering, giving out information for free, open sourcing stuff. I think that's a form of community service. Simple ways to just hopefully improve someone's life and or inspire you to find a way to do that. I don't care if you work out with me or not. I don't care. But if you're like, oh shit, I kind of like this guy, but I don't really want to run, and you go and work out with somebody else and you improve the health in your life, that's all I can ask for. I've done my job. So success for me also is just changing a few people's minds and hopefully a few people's lives along the way.
There's a Jewish saying that I've referenced on the podcast before. Save one life, save a world entire. So you can ad lib it a little bit. Impact one life, impact a world entire. And it's the idea that every individual's life is just as meaningful as the next person's. And if you're able to improve one person's life, that's a whole world, and that's
Yeah.
their whole experience. And I think that's aspirational and encouraging that like that's the goal. The goal is to help one person or two people, not 10 million people or 100 million people.
But maybe I can. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, like I've
Right, right,
unlocked
right.
infrastructures, right? Like I work with Nike, luckily. I work with Dyson. I work with many companies, and if I could GQ, if I could spread information in a meaningful way that helps people change. Because at the end of the day, I also look at it this: I log on or social media account. There's somebody out there every day, give or take, that looks forward to what I'm going to put out that looks forward to it. That waits. There's people. I do exercise snacks lives a couple times a week, and however many people show up, it doesn't matter. But if there's 50 people show up twice a week for that, and then more on their own, I'm changing somebody's life just by being open with the way that I live my life. And I don't take that for granted. I used to just shrug it off. I used to just be like, "This is whatever." I can't believe people even follow me. Da da da. And I don't even say this with a sense of hubris, but I'm like, damn, I've been given, for whatever reason, I am here. And for whatever reason, people are sometimes inspired by what it is that I'm doing. And if I could also give that to you in an applicable way, I'm changing someone's life. I'm changing, and that's special. And that's special to me. But I look at it now and it's a little bit rambling, I guess, but like, I just want to help my family. I want to help my friends. And then I want to help the people out there that are consuming the information that I might put out. And to me, that's a life well lived.
What would uh what would Joe of 15 years ago say or think about Joe of today? And then the second part of that question is what would Joe of today say to that guy?
Damn, that's a good question, Jay. 16-year-old self wouldn't even recognize me, man. But he would say, like, yo, what he would say to me now is like, yo, like, and I guess this answers the second question, like, yo, how do I just calm down? Like, what is important? And I think at that age, I was super in. This is weird, but nobody told me I was good enough. I had a home. I was top 10 in my class in high school as a valedictorian. I was a captain of my basketball team. I was really good at football too. But nobody told me, it was like, yo, Joe, you have these gifts. This is how I'll help you get further. Everybody, I think, just thought I was a little cocky, so always really was intense with me. So I would tell that kid, like, yo, you're good at what you do. It's up to you if you want to be great. There's nothing wrong with you, but there is an opportunity for you to be great. Like, just find the people that help you to be great, but have a little bit of confidence in yourself. That's what I would. That's what I would say to him, and I think that would help him a lot. But yeah, I mean, 16-year-old self would just be like, yo, just, yeah. How do I calm down? Like, what is it that you've learned that has helped you calm down?
Where did that confidence come from that you are enough and you are good and you have the ability to do what you want to do?
I mean, confidence is an interesting word. I think it just became worrying less about public opinion. I mean, the circles I'm in, I'm hopping around fashion weeks. I'm in the public eye. I'm doing photo shoots, this and that. But it was like there. It was the second where I was like, yo, like one, fall in love with really the work. The spotlight is not the work. And then secondly, it's like just look at some of the stuff you've done. And not to say that's what matters, but it's a confidence that I think has come through inner realizations where I've sat down and had really hard, uncomfortable conversations with myself. Like even on this trip, right? What it really is me having conversations with. I work for myself to an extent. I'm still working on doing other things, but it starts with me. The confidence has come from having hard conversations with myself that only I know. And Jay, you could come on, you could say, Joe, you're great, you're so inspirational. My mom could call me and say, you're doing great, I'm so proud of you. My brother, whatever, a girl I'm dating, I always have one foot in, one foot out somewhere. Uh, I could always be. Somebody could always tell you, but only in your heart of hearts have you need to have that conversation with yourself to come to terms with the things that you've done, the things you need to improve, but also from just a state, I think, of love. And it sounds super weird, all right? I don't know if people out there are esoteric or anything like that, but I'm going to give you a really weird story, all right? This was a breakthrough moment for me. I went to a meditation class in New York. Sometimes it was like a grungy meditation class, not one of those, super pretty ones, like this meditation studio. It's not even a studio, maybe it's a Buddhist spot. Have been around for it's been around for a while. I go to a class, I'm sitting there meditating, and I get in a vibe, right? And I see myself. I see 18-year-old Joe, and I start crying, and I forgive him, I'm like, yo, because in my heart, I always felt I should have been a pro athlete or a doctor. But I saw him in my mind's eye, and I forgave him, and I had a little bit of a breakthrough. This was probably 18 months ago. But what was crazy in the meditation class, guess what the meditation teacher said after 5 to 10 minutes after I had that moment? She said, I want you to look at your 18-year-old self and forgive them. And that shit fucked me up. I was like, yo, but I think it's
Get
just
out of
been
my
having,
head.
yeah, I was like, what? But I think it's just been from having real, conversation with myself, like just introspection. And, yeah, I don't know. And also, I will say, last thing on that is, to an extent, you just have to find them. There is someone else who has dealt with these same feelings that you have, and that's why I read so much, because somebody else in his lifeline of existence has had these same feelings in some form. So if I could study from them, understand them, and distill it down into what's applicable for me. So reading has also helped me get more confident.
That's super cool. I think the self acceptance is interesting. Why was the expected track either a pro athlete or a doctor? Those are wildly different
Yeah,
experiences.
I mean, I was good at sports growing up. I always thought that would be a way. And then my dad's a doctor. My dad's my first role model. And I just always liked medicine, playing around in my dad's office, that type of thing. I mean, he practices more integrative medicine, so I think he kind of pushed me more sort towards like business, just because he knew what he was doing was different and also hard. Um, But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Those were the two things that were always on my mind, and I didn't become them. And but then the other route was like, yo, I have to find another way. And when you take a chance, when you go out on a limb, I mean, I'm pretty sure you've known me since the health warrior days. Like my world has
Yeah.
changed, but that took a lot of risk at the time that I didn't fully know, and risk now that I'm just fully understanding as I try to continue to mature.
Yeah, that was what, 2013? I feel like that was like
Yeah, it was like
a million years
2014,
ago.
2014. Yeah,
That's wild.
crazy.
Um, is gratitude something that you practice intentionally?
Yeah. Um, who randomly puts out really good articles around like mindfulness sometimes is Inc. Is and one of the things that they put out I read was basically like you don't have to pretend yourself into saying that life is great, but you can wake up every day and make a decision whether you're going to see life from a position of abundance or scarcity, right? So I just wake up every day and I try to like really see the world. I think I'm pulled in so many directions that it's very hard for me sometimes to be in the moment. So there is something that I like called the Maui principle, which is like when you wake up and put your feet on the ground. You don't have to imagine you're in Maui, but it's like to get that feeling. Just say three things you're grateful for. That's it. Make them concrete. I've been dealing with knee tendonitis that's getting better, and I'm like, I'm grateful my knee feels good today. I'm grateful for whatever, just basic things, right? And that has definitely helped me see the world. So I think you do have to practice gratitude, and that is something that I do engage in.
Cool. Um, so I've had the pleasure of interviewing, I don't know, over 100 professional and elite athletes on this podcast. And along the way, I have started asking certain questions or discovering or discussing certain topics. And it's fascinating to catch some of the consistencies and commonalities of elites and professionals and Olympians, and like what is this mindset that allows people to be successful. And very often or very infrequently they're focused on any sort of tangible outcome, and it's always the mental game that seems to allow people to figure out how to get better. And it started with, I've now referenced this conversation, I don't know, 20 times, but I asked Vanessa Frazier, who's a Nike athlete on the Bowerman Track Club. I was like, what is success? Fast forward 5 years. What are you really proud of? And here's an athlete who's training to go to the Olympics, and she doesn't say anything about the Olympics. She just says getting better. And I found that process oriented outcome, which you talked about earlier, and a focus on gratitude are the two biggest commonalities of successful people, particularly successful athletes. I also like to have successful professionals, in the industry on as well, and it's true for them too. So I think it's encouraging to hear it from you. It's encouraging to hear it from all these athletes over and over and over again that like the numbers are not the metrics that matter. It's, are you checking the boxes daily? I have a friend who has a tattoo on his thigh that says fun, and he wants to check the fun box every day. And you were talking about
Yeah.
fun earlier today in this conversation, and I had a conversation with Aisha Pratlier, who's a Puma professional athlete, and she's like, "I'm 30 years old. If I wasn't having fun every day, in running, I wouldn't still be doing this." And so I think that these are like the trio of characteristics that allow this process oriented outcome to thrive. So I'm curious, given you and your experiences, is there maybe a fourth or another component that you've seen to be consistent with people who have achieved objective levels of success or subjective levels of success?
Yeah, those are all super important. But what I also think is important is to define the rule book as it exists for you, not as how you've been told it is. So at the end of the day, you have to sometimes suspend belief and create a reality that is contingent upon your gifts and the environment in which you are in, right? So it's like the Albert Einstein thing. If you ask a fish to fly, it's not going to be successful. So the thing that I think is also important is like people always think, oh, I can't do that. That doesn't make sense. It is to that. It's like you have to realize. I think the special sauce a little bit for everything is you, and it's dependent upon the context that's which you're in. So do you need to change your context, or do you need to change slightly who you are to succeed? And then, as you hit earlier, I think it's principles. I think it's really engaging in the day to day activities that'll lead you forward. And if you do that, when you think about, I believe it's consistence over persistence. I used to be super basically persistent. I would rely on my talent instead of my positive habits. And that's what I think, especially as you age, right? You see that with LeBron, you see that, with Kobe, RIP. You have to realize you're going to have to constantly reinvent yourself to utilize your skill sets to the best results. And then you're really just going to have to apply it. Like, you're going to have to do weird shit. Like, fall in love with your idiosyncrasies. I think everybody who is special does that. And I've been able to work with a lot of people in the game, and a lot of them are so weird. I will tell you that they are weird. To be good to great at, or exceptional at what you do, there are certain things that you are gonna have to do that are absolutely weird but work for you. Fall in love with it. Fall in love with it. And that's your design practice, right? That's your special swoosh. That's your swoosh. That's your three stripes. That's what your whatever. But until you're completely ready, especially if you want to do something that's different, you have to fall in love with your oddities. And once you learn to accept that, you'll flourish.
What are your oddities?
I'm weird. I'm by myself. I'm here. I'm like, and people are like, yo, what are you doing? What are you going to do for your birthday? Da, 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 da. I mean, my brother's in town. He's at a different house. He's been here for like a month and a half. I'm like, yo, I'm going to spend time by myself. And they're like, what? And people used to always look at me weird when I would want to do that, right? But I'm like, yo, this is what makes me tick. I spend time with myself. I need time to recharge. There's certain habits that I have, like I talk to myself in the third person because that's a study tactic that allows you to problem solve better. And I know it works for me. I fall in love with that. Like, there's just certain odd things that I do that work. And I'm like, if I want to live life differently, there are certain things that are different that I'm going to have to do. But of course, I'm not insane. At least I hope not. But even if I am, I'm feeling pretty good.
It's
If this is
working
all,
for you.
yeah, if this is all a fever dream, I'll take it. You know?
What I love that. I could just picture you just sitting in the big empty house, you talking to yourself in the third person, being like, "We're gonna have a good day today, Joe. My knees are feeling
Yeah,
good. Gonna go for my run, and it's gonna be a good day. Sky's blue."
trick yourself to greatness.
Yeah. Um, Talk to me a little bit about the coaching that you do through Nike and through some other platforms.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of coaching, I think COVID has changed a few things, but I was, in 2014 and 15, group classes were really big, right? But I came from a football area where, of course, it's a group, but you were really performance oriented and one-on-one curated journeys. So that's where I really cut my teeth. Was I would take people on one-on-one journeys, especially for Nike in terms of concierge fashion, and there would be tangible outcomes, right? So whether it be stress reduction, whether it be aesthetic based or running, I took this step. I work with a lot of models, and I know it's weird, but basically, models are similar to athletes that they rely on their body for their jobs. There's an aspect of their stuff that might not be health promoting; it has to be performance promoting. So they need to look good, but you also always have to keep them healthy. So basically, with coaching in that way, I would take athletic principles and apply them to that. And then also for running, I worked with Steve Finley, who's a really good coach, Brooklyn Track Club. I worked on Project Moonshot with him. I was really intrigued about how do we make runners better, because we have to look at it. While you talk to elite runners, most people who are engaged in running are not elite,
Right.
and they don't have that good of an athletic foundation. So the key was, can we bulletproof? Basically, what I specialize is athletic agnostic bulletproofing, which is I will improve your athletic base, and a lot of the times as it pertains to running, to make you better. So that's typically how I like to approach it, and is my coaching style. So it's been super fun. I've coached multiple people to do marathons. I've coached, of course, some of the most beautiful people in the world, trained them. But now, I recently dropped a master class. I still have myself on a Nike training app. What I'm really focused on now is like finding that middle ground to get, of course, more people healthy, but also educated around different wellness strategies. Because a lot of my stuff isn't just around physical activity. It's like how we treat the mind, how do we recover, how do we eat, and I just think people need a foundational wellness education.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. It's less about the high end and top end and getting, the exact perfect workout, and more about Ben Bergeron says, do the common uncommonly well.
Mm.
Um, so you mentioned, bulletproofing the training for amateurs. What are your, for those who are listening, probably 90% of whom are amateurs, what are your three bulletproof techniques?
Sleep, man. Fall in love with sleep, yo. But this is the key. The same way people skip the cool down for running, they skip the cool down for the day. And that's not just, you can't improve your sleep once you're already in bed. From dusk and sunset to the time you're going to take for bed, figure out, that's what I call the cool down period. Figure out the strategies that will improve your sleep. So whether that's reducing artificial light, whether that is tea, whether that is a light stretch to reduce, cortisol that might be up, whether that's taking supplements, figure out what works for you to get good sleep. And that was a game changer for me. I was getting no REM or slow wave sleep, and I was like, what is going on? And I took some time to figure that out and got it back up to healthy levels, and that has made me feel completely different. Um, Also, the other thing that I will say is, you have a prehab. Really fall understand your prehab, So especially if your runners, understand how low intensity exercise benefits you, understand how to foam roll, understand how to do the basic prehab exercises that will go a super long way. And then eat. What a lot of people don't understand is this: the more active you are, the more, and both active in terms of work and fitness, right? If you're working, your brain consumes a lot of energy. If you're working out as well, then your body starts to consume it. Really, you have to eat more food. So the thought process that we've often gotten into, especially nutrient dense food, is like we've looked at it from such an aesthetic space that a lot of people work out so they don't have to eat or think of working out as a reward. I'm like, please figure out your nutritional strategies. Those make your workouts like a lot easier. And then you can get into the nitty gritty, the training plans, training peaks, all that stuff. But really, uh, eating, sleep, and prehab, I think are really the big three.
Awesome. Those are the definitely the fundamentals. I think sleep is finally starting to get the recognition it deserves, and we see so many sleep products out there, and so many. Like a couple of years ago, I read an article. I was like, I forget what it was. Basically, the concept was like, whoever makes sleep sexy is going to win, and I don't know that we're I don't know that we're there yet. Maybe it's Casper and all these purple mattress companies selling nicer mattresses, but you still gotta actually set yourself up for success there. Joe, I could go on for hours talking about all this with you, but for those who want to follow along with your adventures, where can we find you on social?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. I'm at Joe Holder. Then an underscore on Instagram I'm at Ocho System, and then also at Exercise Snacks if you're just really trying to get active and understand that end. So yeah, appreciate it. Keep up, and yeah, I appreciate the chat, Jay.
Of course, likewise. That's it for today's episode. Like many long runs, it's sad when it has to end. I hope you join in next time on For the Long Run, and in the meantime, happy trails. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean a lot to me if you shared it so that others can find it and enjoy it too.